Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally. If you are new on this channel, I do a lot of beautiful crafts, furniture flips. We have a phenomenal dump in our town where we can take or leave anything, so I have some fantastic dump hauls. And then from many of those items, I recreate them, usually in the farmhouse style. And today I have 4 thrift flips or dump haul flips for you as part of a challenge. This challenge is hosted by the Rusted Willow and Southern More Gals, which they do the third Thursday of every month. This is an open challenge. Make sure you check my description box, and I will have the link to everyone who's participating, as well as those 2 lovely ladies. So project number 1 is this cute little stool. This is something that you can get at a yard sale, at a Goodwill, or a thrift store for a couple of bucks, and they're pretty easy to find. This one for us happened to be on the good table at our dump, so actually did not cost me anything. And I am painting this here with Rust-Oleum chalked paint in linen white. Now, this was a manufactured piece, not real wood, like a press board kind of a thing. Pretty sturdy, but not real wood. And the painting was not raised, thankfully, so I didn't have to sand first. I was able to just clean it real well and then go ahead. I put 2 full coats of the chalk paint on it and then touched up a couple of places that just didn't seem to quite get the coverage that I needed. And I waited for the paint to fully dry, and then I took some rice paper that I had purchased on Amazon. This is the first time that I have used rice paper in the place of tissue paper for decoupage, and I love the way that it came out. So I printed some more up-to-date type safari pictures and then cut close to the animals. I don't like to have a lot of white space with that. And then using the Mod Podge, just went ahead and went underneath each of those pictures and then on top to give that a good seal and to make sure that it would stay on, because obviously children are going to be standing on this and heaven knows what else. So the thing about Mod Podge is, even though it says it is a matte finish, it really does dry with still a bit of a shine. So if you do get it on the edges, as you inevitably will, it makes sense to actually Mod Podge the entire side. So I literally just, as if I was painting it, went over the whole entire side so that it would all have the same finish. Once I was finished with both sides, I used an identical picture for each side so that no matter what side you were looking at, it looked the same. And then I took the smaller animals that I had cut out and then just put some on the little steps going up. And I think that it came out really cute. The nursery at our church that my husband and I are working on is the inspiration for this piece. It is blues and whites and grays, so I definitely did not want that aqua color. And the curtains that are there have some of these similar animals in it, so I thought that this print was a very close match. Now, I did print this as a free printable. You can use Pixabay and you can use Graphics Fairy and any number of free printables. So you find a print that you like and you're able to just download that. See, this is where I'm just finishing that piece so that the finish is the same all the way across those sides. And then I did end up, after this was fully dry for a day or two, taking it and outside and giving it a good polyurethane coat, a couple of coats, because children will stand on that, and I wanted that to stay, as protected as possible for as long as possible. And I think that it came out really adorable. You'll have to let me know what you think of this. And if you would have kept it in the aqua color, but I think that it really came out really more up to date and sweet. So that is item number 1. And then on to item number 2. Now, for this one, I am not certain how easily that would be to thrift, but keep your eyes open for them. Again, I was able to get this at the dump. It is a light fixture with that beautiful bubble glass. I took it home and ran it through the dishwasher and looked around to see what I might be able to use for a finial. I had 4 of these bedpost type things. And then I had a round mirror that was just a plastic mirror. That would be the perfect shape. It did have a hanging ring from it, so I began by just removing the hanging ring from the mirror because I could save that for a future project, being that I did not need to hang this item. And after cleaning that, I decided to use some, it's like a linen, muslin wrap color paint. This is a latex paint. I didn't want to just use chalk paint because I was afraid that it would just scratch right off the mirror section of this. So a latex paint does seem to grip a little bit better if you ever decide that you want to paint over the mirror itself. That took 1 complete coat. I think maybe I did end up doing 2 coats on this, just to give it a finished look and have that completely covered, because I knew that I was going to end up putting stuff on this and did not want the paint to be able to scratch right off again. When I was completely done painting the mirror section of this, I turned my attention to that finial, which was kind of a more white, dirty white, so I wanted to make sure that these 2 were the same color. And this happened to have just a little wooden dowel stuck in the bottom, so that made it handy for holding, so that I could get that painted without getting it all over myself, although getting it off of there to dry was a bit of a trick. So you might in advance want to have something to stick that in or on if you ever paint something like that. And that took 1 complete coat, and latex does take a bit longer to dry than chalk paint, so it was a couple of hours to get that good and dry before I could move on with the rest of this project. And that did require a 2nd coat. I love having the Lazy Susan. That certainly helps, especially when you're using round items or items that you want to get up off of the table, and it just makes it a lot easier, especially if you're videotaping, to move everything around. But even if you're not, just for your own sake, to keep your surface clean underneath that. If you wanted to reproduce this, you could get one of those larger platters at the dollar store, or a large plate, or any round piece of wood if you happen to have that. This mirror just happened to be something free that I had in my stash that made a very good base for this, especially given the size of the glass cloche that I had to work with. I guess I lost the footage of how I added some dark antiquing wax very lightly to the edges and over this, just to give it a little bit more of an aged look. Now, I used to have a shop years ago, and so I do have a number of items left that didn't sell, and this was one of them. A little nest made out of twigs with some eggs in it. Needed a little bit extra moss to lift up the eggs and just kind of add a little more to it, so I just hot glued the Spanish moss and then added a little of the green reindeer moss to give that a finished look made that a little bit higher up. I did end up actually removing the eggs and adding a little more in off camera. Then I just cleaned all that off of that and decided that I would like to elevate that a little bit, give it a little bit of little feet. I had a little bird and double checking here that the actual thing will fit under the cloche and that I could use this with that little finial on top. But here's where I decided I would rather put some feet on it. So I have a couple different spindles. You can cut those down. I had these little tiny feet that I got from the dollar store that are actually snowmen. But at the end of the day, I decided to use some corks. I had found an entire bucket of corks, and so I got those for free, and I just hot glued 4 of them on the bottom to just elevate that and give it a little bit of height, give it a little bit more of presence. I just think lifting, elevating these things up just a little bit, adding a riser look to it, just finishes that look, gives it a little bit more stability. And here it is on my coffee table. And I think it is absolutely spectacular. I will have to glass glue the top finial on. I did not do that yet. And then decided that I might want to switch out the green bird. As much as I love it, it didn't pop as much as I wanted it to. And I did have a cream-colored antique bird that I have had in my home for quite some time, so I added that, and that completed the look for me. That was exactly what I was going for. And I do believe that this is going to end up being my absolute favorite thrift flip that I have done maybe this entire spring and all the videos that I've done recently. I just absolutely love it. And then later on I did actually add a little bit of green eucalyptus underneath the wreath on the plate as well. I don't have it here, but that also added a little bit. And then on to number 3. Now this mirror, now you can pick up a wooden mirror just about anywhere, any thrift store, any yard sale. Again, free at my dump. We just have had some wonderful items left behind. This somebody had toll painted it. Not my style, and sometimes with this reddish wood you get some bleed through, so you might want to polyurethane it first, but where it was a mirror I decided to give it a try with the linen white chalk paint by Rust-Oleum, and I did not have any bleed through, so I was very happy about that. You can tape off the mirror. It's not really a big deal for me. I noticed years ago that it is just easier for me to just go ahead and paint that quickly, save the tape, save the time, and just take a straight edge razor once everything's all dry and just go ahead and scrape it off the mirror. But whatever you prefer to do, I went ahead and gave this mirror 2 complete coats of this chalk paint. And then once that was completely dry, I had gone through my IOD transfers and I had seen a lovely lavender transfer, stems of lavender that I had wanted to use. So that was my inspiration for this mirror. And so once that was completely dry, I pulled that out. Now, if you've ever used these IOD stamps on chalk paint, it's absolutely best to wait 24 hours for that paint to cure. It gives it a much better transfer. But I did see someone recently spray poly over it and let the poly dry and then put the transfer on. That is not something that I typically do. I typically use the poly after I transfer it, but I think you could also do that before and after to get a good seal and to make sure that the transfer does not lift the paint up off of, you know, the item that you've been working on. So this is the IOD stamp, and it has such beautiful beautiful pictures in it, beautiful transfers. I am looking forward to using some of the others. I have some really good ideas. But for this particular one, I thought it would be pretty to just take a couple of those tall lavender stems and just put a couple on either side of the mirror. You do just need to cut that out. If you've never used that before, then you want to just lay that down right where you would like it to be. Once you lay it down, it is, not wise to move it. So you want to make sure you get that where you want it. It comes with either a wooden stick or a plastic stick, depending upon the brand name. The redesigned ones usually come in a tube, and the IOD ones come in that little booklet style. And then you just rub and rub and rub until you see that. You can usually see that it changes more to an opaque look on the item itself, and sometimes you can just feel that it has released the top from the bottom. I did have a little bit of trouble because I didn't wait long enough for the chalk paint to cure, but I did finally get that to come off. I had pulled up one little piece of the transfer, which took some of the paint with it, and I did have to give that a little bit of a touch up at the end. And then once that was done, I picked another one and decided to overlap that just a little bit onto the mirror itself. I like that look with a mirror. Now, of course, you want to make sure your mirror is nice and clean before you do this. You can clean over these gingerly, but you do not want, to polyurethane on your mirror. You don't have to polyurethane. You can wax, but just some kind of a finish, especially a chalk paint. Otherwise, if it gets wet, I'm assuming this mirror could end up in someone's bathroom, so therefore it has a likely chance of having some humidity or some water getting on it. So I just took a wax brush and some white wax, and you could use clear wax as well, and I just went over that whole wooden piece wherever the chalk paint was with that, and took a rag and just kind of buffed that wax into the wood, the paint, and the transfer so that the whole thing will be good and have that preservation. And that was all there is to it. If you haven't tried these IOD stamps or these transfers, they are really easy to use. The only tip I have is let the paint cure 24 hours. And then here it is, all finished. Very simple, very elegant, just so much nicer, updated from the red wooden toll painted piece that I had started with. So you'll have to let me know what you think of this lavender IOD transfer. And then that takes me on to my next project. Now, this project is a thrift find. I had thrifted an item when I went to the consignment shop where I bring some of my items to sell. And I had seen this on sale, this little bucket, compote, lunch pail. I'm really not sure exactly what it is. I couldn't find much information on it. It was, I believe, $3. And then before I painted it, I wanted to make sure it didn't have any value. I believe it is Kate Greenaway, and just in case it did have value, I wouldn't want to paint over it, but I didn't see anything worth more than $4 or $5, so I decided that it was worth painting. I didn't love the Kate Greenaway scene on it. It didn't seem to be a huge collectible by any means, so again, I used that same chalk paint and completely covered that. This is another time when that Lazy Susan comes in very handy. Now, I did not want to get paint on the inside in case in the future somebody did want to use food items in this. It could be a cookie jar, a lunch pail, or something in the future. In my case, I would just use it as a decor piece, but just in case. So I gave that entire bucket one full coat and then let that dry, covering over that existing artwork. Of course, anytime you paint anything with a handle, you have to be careful not to get that handle in the paint as you are painting. And you can tell my sweatshirt has been painted a myriad of times, many colors, much stain, and much paint all over this sweatshirt. Now, I did end up, after this was dry, giving this a second coat to make it, look much more finished, keeping the edges nice, and even down where the metal two pieces meet, putting a couple of coats down in there just to make it look like it was, always meant to be painted. Once this was completely finished, I decided to do the handle and the knob on top of the little cover there in a deep brown color, which was, I believe, Java, so that it would match the IOD transfer that I wanted to put on it. But the bright white was just a little too white for me. So here I am painting the handle in brown and using a spindle just to keep that from falling back down and hitting the side of the bucket. And then painted the knob also in that brown color, and that also took 2 full coats to cover that, being that it was metal. I think it was a little bit slippery, so the paint didn't take as well as I would have liked. So a couple of coats on that until that was completely finished, the knob and the handle, and then decided to pull out the antiquing wax, and I think that was a Waverly antiquing wax, and just give that entire thing a good dry brush. If you use a chippy brush, that helps giving that a less perfect line. It's much more jagged, and that way it doesn't look all perfect. You can just leave the wax on the piece just where it is. You do not have to wipe it off with a rag, but I kind of like to, because it gives it more of it smears it in and gives it more of an antique-y look, almost like it's just been almost not quite dirty, but just aged. And I just like that look a little bit more, but not everybody likes distressing. Not everybody likes that antique-y look. So if that's not for you, then go ahead and just keep it what color you like. And then this piece of IOD transfer with the little birds I had left from a project I had done a number of months ago for my sister, and I have been waiting to just use up these last couple of sweet little birds, and I thought this was the perfect time, being that we are getting ready for spring, and it went so well. It had the white and right creamish color in it, as well as the brown that was in the handle and in the knob, and I just really liked that combination. When you're working on a surface that is not completely flat, it does just help to have 2 hands here so that you can really hold it really well on the one side. You could also roll up 2 towels or something on either side just to keep it steady while you are pulling the transfer, and since this was a small transfer, it didn't take very long to get that adhered to the bucket. Once again, though, you do want to wait overnight. I did not, to get this video out, but it does really it does a lot better if you wait the 24 hours. I absolutely love, love, love the way this little bucket came out. It looks so cute. I like it so much better, and I can't believe I only paid $2.50 or $3 for this little bucket. It is a great addition to my collection. Not that I need another thing in my house because I just have so many things, but boy, it is hard to pass up this IOD stamp transfer with the birds. So here it is, a couple of different ways. You could put a number of things in here to display. I just really have enjoyed this, so I hope you will subscribe. I hope that you will check out the playlist and see all the other wonderful crafters in this challenge, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for stopping by.